Hello, everyone. Jax West, no relation to the Averys. I just got home and people have been sending me screenshots all day on apparently Sweaty Sweat Sweat, aka Ken Kratz, the prize, has been tweeting shit all day. And so somebody sent me a whole bunch of screenshots of all of his tweets throughout the day. And so my original plan was when I got home, I would copy and paste all of those into one thread here in Gossip for everybody to see. And I'll still do that. But I thought it would be fun to come live and read all these together. I have not read all of these myself because I've been out doing things throughout the day, so wasn't able to read them. So I will be reading them for the first time with you all. I don't know. I don't do Twitter. So, okay. I guess it's better for me to read the screenshots than to read his Twitter. So let me pull up on my other screen here message with all the pictures. And also know yesterday I was live and I was able to stay live the whole time, but just know there's a chance my laptop has been being funky and so my laptop could cut me off. So still scrolling. All right, I think this is the first one. So these may not all be in the posted or anything. I'm not sure, but we'll just read them all together. So, and this is because Sweaty Sweat Sweat has come out of his hole due to the $100,000 and due to that snitch confessing his alleged confession, but most importantly is because he's reissuing his book because it was an epic failure last time around. And so he's added like 2 extra chapters in it that I guess he's saying some crap about how he thinks now that Brendan should be released. And I don't know the details on that because I typically don't pay attention to anything that this monster rapist says. Because let's not forget, he likes to call Stephen Avery or Brendan Dassey a rapist, but he's the one that raped women because he forced women to have sex with him that didn't want to have sex with his sweaty sweat self. So, all right. So this first one I was sent, good Sonia that you could be on the live. So it says, Kratz says, so I'm hearing you correctly. When I asked what you would have investigated about Bobby, you said you first would have investigated Ryan Hilgas, who on 10/31 was living and working in Milwaukee with a girlfriend and a real life, and Teresa's roommate, Scott Blodorn, right? And I guess what initially started was he was having a discussion with poster on there. And so this TikTok Manitowoc replied with, oh shit, I didn't even catch the working part. That's right, Ryan was unemployed and stated so in Queso. So Ken literally just did the same thing Vogel did to Avery with Gregory Allen. He is making up alibis for a possible suspect. Wow. Oh, I'm now scrolling the wrong way. All right, so this one is a tweet by Kratz. He's also tagged his daughter wife, and it says, may I ask, who were the supporters? Man, they really like using quotes. Who were the supporters she said vile things to? You claim to have a handle on why you think Leah, that's his sister-daughter wife, Leah deserves this, just wondering, because the only comment about being raped after Avery got out was to that nasty Nina woman who said she would let Stephen babysit her kids, which before I go to anything else in reading this, even if it's only one woman, that daughter wife said that she hopes Steven Avery rapes, it's uncalled for and out of line and showing that she's vile. Period. So there you go. So then I see a response. Somebody says, she's a nasty piece of work. You have her well trained. And then somebody else says, this one wasn't even to a supporter, but a top Wisconsin state official. How lovely. And then it's a screenshot of daughter wife's post saying, looks like nobody will be interviewing Peg, at least not with any sort of reply expected. That's her making fun of that Peg Laugenschlager, however you say her name, died. So then TikTok says, this was your wife, Ken, mocking the death of your boss, Wisconsin DOJ Josh Call's mother, on the very night she passed away. So stop acting like you two are just innocent tweeters. And then somebody said, remember, Leah denied posting that. And TikTok said, oh, I know. And then this person says, oh, are you replying to me, Ken? And then next one says, you need to keep better raps on your child wife. She is vile and bringing you down and you don't even know it. Wahaha. And then somebody else says, don't you have the, I can't see that word because there's a bubble up there. Leah said about a cactus, something's mom being dead. I can't read all that. I can't see it. So the next one, somebody is saying, haha, no way. Well done, Eric. I'm contacting Twitter support. Think she was slightly panicking. Next person says, I mean, I personally wouldn't let Steven babysit my kids, but if she did, why does that make her nasty? It's her prerogative. Wishing rape on someone, though, is vile in any context. And so here is the post that daughter wife made, where she also tags her buddy Richard Donovan, who is a friend of Carla Chase's, that Carla Chase invited to the Manitowoc rally and has a picture of her arms wrapped around him. Which, when we discussed yesterday my issues with the family, that's absolutely one of my issues, because if you're accusing my family member of committing a murder that I know they didn't do, I'm not going to be friends with you. I have nothing to say to you. But Steven's family likes to hang out with guilters. So the post that Leah made said, scaredy cat, hypocrite, liar, ignorant, delusional, all words to describe the waste of oxygen named Nina. Hope Steven gets out and rapes her first. Meanwhile, she's married to a rapist. But this is what she's saying to somebody who supports Steven, who is innocent. Yeah, she's lovely. The next one says, I don't think I specifically said she deserved it, because I would not wish that on anyone. If you read, I said, although I would not say those things myself, my point was with Leah, if you can't take it, don't fish it, and she very dishes it. Oh, typo, so dish it. Mm-hmm. Next screenshot. Person saying he does a good job of that on his own, but yes, she is garbage and he stinks. This one says, to TikTok, don't you have the things Leah said about a cactus, Josh's mom being dead, and Avery raping a supporter? Okay. Okay, so here is a screenshot of when daughter wife said, this is fake. I would never say this. That profile picture was taken 1 week ago, so it couldn't be a tweet from March. Twitter support is being notified. Okay, sure. And this one says, and some of us even took the effort to find it in her timeline just so there was no doubt she was lying. And so this screenshot, because when you go and look at something now, if your picture has changed, it puts your current picture on there. So this is somebody who went back to the actual date it happened so they could get what her old screenshot was at that time, or profile pic. Okay, those aren't anything that needs to be said. Oh, so this is the Richard Donovan, lovely Carla's BFF, saying when Kathleen tweeted something saying a verdict based on perjury and fabricated evidence will never survive once fear subsides and truth told. And his comment on that is, a lawyer who bases her representation of a guilty man on insincere motives is destined to fail. He's a peach. This person says, the thing here, Ken, is you can easily tell horrific stories about things you haven't done. Just ask Mr. Evans. You led Brendan to believe he could go home if he said the things you wanted him to say without ever breaking down. Want to know why? Because he knew it wasn't true. Next one says, you meant this case had the most fake evidence ever tested in the Wisconsin crime lab. It was your own fantasies and fiction that convicted Avery Dassey. You're a disgrace. This one says, you are so desperate and are going down. Your story is so far-fetched and is being torn apart. Every time you and your supporters speak, you show how desperate and ignorant you all really are. I hope you are not a coward in the end. Kathleen, my popcorn bowl is ready. Next says, sorry, bud, but thousands of real cops strongly disagree. Nothing about this investigation was legitimate. Not a single protocol was followed. Nothing was done correctly by any stretch of the imagination. Next one says, and what everybody really hates is a murderer walking the streets and rapists walking the streets as much as the women raped by Gregory Allen after Stephen was convicted of his crime can attest to. This one says, oh, hell, oh, sorry. That's not something that needs to be read. All right, so here's a tweet by Sweaty Sweat Sweat, who says, when are Avery supporters going to stop this ridiculous position that because I personally screwed up in 2009, that means the entire Avery investigation and prosecution 05 to 07 can be ignored. Show me evidence, witness statements, real arguments. But your only response is, but Kratz, ... And then he's got a pic posted that says ad hominem. You attack your opponent's character or personal traits in an attempt to undermine their argument. And then replies to him is, sober up, Ken. You're making a fool out of yourself again. This one says, oh, come on, Ken, there's more holes in this case than in Stephen's burn barrel. But you wouldn't know that because we know you swapped them. Your time's coming and the world's going to enjoy watching you squirm. Next one says, actually, the most ironclad case in Wisconsin was the one involving your extremely creepy text messages. Next one says, why was there no proper investigation into others who did have more reason to attack her? But mostly, if you are the fair, reasonable man you purport yourself to be, why wouldn't you be looking over this again to make sure no mistakes happened? Next one says, nobody likes a liar and the whole world knows you are one. And now Kratz says, oh, it's the one I already read. So these things are out of order, sorry. This one says, correction, there is more than enough proof that you ordered barrel mark number 4, which was a 55-gallon documented on property tag returned to Avery's. However, you accepted that barrel that was returned was only a 50-gallon and you knew it. Proof of tampering of evidence. Next one says, oh, I doubt there was maybe the most physical evidence ever tested in the history of the Wisconsin Crime Lab. I am sure you, Fassbender, Wiegert, Lenk, Colburn, Remacher, and all the rest fabricated as much as you could. This one says, if your case was so ironclad, then how did two men get convicted of the same murder where victim was killed differently and different places for each conviction? Next one says, yeah, which conviction do you stand by? This one says, no, Ken, Brendan also described putting the RAV in the fire, which we know is false as no fire damage and coerced, and Stephen stabbing Teresa in the fire pit. How do you explain both of these statements being taken down on paper, yet you chose to ignore as it never fitted your story? This one says, the most physical evidence ever tested in the history of the Wisconsin Crime Lab. And the first time in the history of her career, Sherry Culhane requested a deviation report to submit contaminated evidence. And then it's a screenshot of a news report that has a picture of Kratz, and the text on it says, months earlier, Kratz had gone on television and luridly described a rape and torture scene that presaged the murder for which there was and is no physical evidence. This one says, why, when you hold the Hallbacks in such high regard, would you not double check and triple check that justice has been done for their precious girl? And why would you not want, for your own professional validity, want to make sure no errors were made and so help as best you can? Next one, and we should trust the lab, cronyism at its finest, the good old boys. And here's Kratz tweeting saying, this case was as damn near to ironclad, then here again with his quotes, ironclad, and then he's got in parentheses, whatever that means, as you get. The most physical evidence ever tested in the history of the Wisconsin Crime Lab. No evidence how bones moved off the Avery property. Brendan Dassey described bones put in buckets and dumped by Avery! Exclamation point. This one says, we will be waiting for your answer on this. No, nothing. This one says, it's like Ken is throwing shit against the wall to see if any sticks. Fortunately, it's just sticking to you, Ken. Next one says, you seem to like books. Did you read these? And then one is learning to sketch with Michael O'Kelly. If you don't know what to draw, he'll show you step by step. And the other one's titled Coercion, helping you to say what we want. World-renowned brainwashers. Made up entirely by Tom Fassbender and Mike Wiegert. Okay, sorry, because I'm scanning it now just to make sure it's not like in a wrong order that this is something I've read already. This one says, the most physical evidence ever tested in the history of the Wisconsin Crime Lab? Really? And what little you presented, apparently your best, has been smashed by the defense. You had so much tested to find something and found nothing. Cost more than a payout to Stephen. Next one says, also, Dassey described bones put in buckets and dumped. Funny. Queso deputy found 2 buckets of bones 2 miles away. Those buckets of bones never made it in evidence, never photographed, never fingerprinted. If Avery dumped then, you'd finally have his prints, which eluded you. Gross. Okay. So this one says, sorry, ironclad must be an English expression. It means watertight, no chance of it being wrong, and Brendan Dassey couldn't keep his story straight. It contradicts itself until the sequence of events is fed to him. Why would Stephen move the bones to 4 locations? And so now the next person, their name is Brett's in Boston. So that's going to be Brett Condon, who has to constantly change his Twitter name because he keeps getting banned because he's just a total prick. And actually, he's the only person that I've actually called the cops on. And that's because Barb said she was scared for my safety and wanted me to call the police. He threatened me and told me that I was easy to find and something was going to be coming in the mail to me. And then he made some physical threats. So he's a peach of a guy who is friends with Richard Donovan and some of the people that run Carla's pages. So he says, ironclad and watertight when talking about criminal justice is subject to one's opinion. Next person says, and there is much reasonable doubt. Kratz says, there is no reasonable doubt, defined as a doubt for which a reason can be given after consideration of all the evidence. Sorry, fangirls, that means answers to how was Avery's blood in places in the RAV4? How did Teresa's electronics get in Avery's own burn barrel? I'll wait. What do you have to wait for? Planted and planted. I solved that one. Where's my Scooby snack? Next one says, hey, Ken, can you explain this? How comes the RAV4 was seized by the cops, then ended up on the Avery property? Let's not forget the VIN numbers. Don't let me stop there. Pam Sturm, first picture of the RAV4 at the back had no blood on it. Then later it has blood over the back boot. Please go ahead and answer if you're so convinced Stephen and Brendan committed this horrible crime. While you're thinking about that, let's move on to the bookcase and the key, the magical one that landed spectacularly on the floor when Mr. Lenk shouldn't be searching the trailer. Next one says, I believe you are on about the Dassey burn barrel that was relabeled, Mr. Kratz. Next one says, sorry, bud, but thousands of real cops strongly disagree. Nothing about this investigation was legitimate. Not a single protocol was followed. Nothing was done correctly by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so here's Kratz saying, you've learned nothing in the last 5 minutes. But Kratz, breathlessly repeating your only response to uncontroverted evidence, not only available, but presented to the jury. So, Sandy, putting Sandy in quotes, what evidence do you have showing Stephen is innocent? The world waits. He's such a douche. Another Kratz post, which he's got titled One of Two. Let me help you, TikTok, or whatever the fuck you anonymous cowards want to be called. Woo, somebody touched a nerve. The, now in quotes, or other family member is your boy Brendan. But even with Brendan, the charged defendant, if evidence of his porn searches were offered as other acts of evidence, Brendan's porn searches? You mean Bobby? Next Kratz tweet says, please show me Leah's tweets, which are, in quotes, right up there with advocating for another human to have their head blown off. I'll wait. He really likes saying, I'll wait. His next tweet, to imagine Avery is innocent requires anyone to completely ignore the evidence together with common sense. Why would she, or anyone for that matter, choose to imagine what cannot possibly be true? All right, and here's Sweaty Sweat again, saying, let's talk about the press conference that you, defense attorneys, pundits, and millions of MAM fans were quick to identify as the, he also likes to put words in all capitals, so the is all capitalized, the reason Stephen Avery couldn't get a fair trial. Question, how many jurors who sat on the Avery trial had ever heard of the Dassey press conference? Who the fuck cares? You tampered the jury pool. Period. Doesn't matter how many ended up on the jury that were affected. The fact remains that you broke the rules, Mr. Kratz. Mr. Kratz, or whatever the fuck you want to call yourself. You broke the rules and tampered with the jury pool by putting out lies. You did it. Own it. His next tweet. May I ask who were the supporters she said vile things to? You claim to have a handle on why you think daughter, child, bride deserves this. Just wondering, because the only, all capitals, comment about being raped at, oh, I've read that already. All right. So now his next one here says, I'm in a responding mood, Rhonda. Another opportunity for a fangirl to be famous. Ugh. Apparently you believe I refer to the DNA found on the hood latch as sweat DNA. Please find an interview clip, there are many, and show me, all capitals, calling it, all capitals, sweat DNA. Don't be like MAM, no splicing. Kratz, you're not famous, you're infamous. Look it up. Look up the difference. So somebody tweeting at you is not making them famous, nor is that what somebody is looking to be by tweeting at your stupid ass. Next Kratz says, found nothing? 3 question marks. Oh my, ... The state of Twitter is worse than I thought. You are going to stand by your claim of no, all capitals, evidence. Okay, Karen, or whatever your real identity is. Here's your one question. You can be famous. Please explain how Stephen's blood got inside Teresa's locked SUV. Asked and answered. Asked and answered. How did it get in the SUV? Why don't you ask your lab techs who didn't change their gloves while going from Stephen's vehicle to Teresa's vehicle? Why don't we start there? Kratz again. That, all capitals, bullet or a bullet? You are not very bright, are you? I've never read your tweets until today. Now I see what all the fuss is about. Now it says 2 of 2. 904.042. For those of you following along, evidence of porn searches in April 2006 would be irrelevant, all capitals, even as to motive. Stated an easier way, how does someone's behavior 5 months from now tell you how or why he's likely to act today? Somebody had to say this. What the fuck are you babbling about? Porn searches were Bobby Dassey's. So bringing up porn searches, stupid. It has nothing to do with Brendan or Stephen or the lies you made up for this case. So whose ever behavior you're referring to that change or not in 5 months, you're not talking about Bobby Dassey, whose porn it is. So who cares? Oh, all right. That's something I'm editing something for Marnie's press conference, and so Jeff just sent it to me to prove. But hold on, because I can't leave him hanging when he's doing that because he's kind of working on this. So let me look at this real quick. So pause. All right, back to this. Sorry, but the press conference for Marnie is on Wednesday, so I can't put Jeff off if he's starting to print stuff for that. All right, so Kratz says, oh wait, I already read that one. All right, here's Kratz saying, hey, you in the gallery, aka mom's basement. This is not your conversation. Either okay. Sorry. I know that's what a prick again. Just aka your mom's basement. Oh sorry. Not everybody's in their $250,000 house that he seems to think is so phenomenal. I mean, I guess for Wisconsin that is. His next tweet says, so I'm hearing you correctly. When I asked what you would have investigated about Bobby, you said you first would have investigated, which we've already read that one. This is when he's claiming that Hilgas had a job. All right, so now he says, Richard Mahler, the dismissed juror who falsely claimed he needed to quit deliberations for a medical emergency, was asked if the jurors ever, all capitals, mentioned the Dassey statement in deliberations. Surely if everyone, all capitals, in Wisconsin was tainted, one juror would have at least mentioned it. Then he says, let's talk about the okay, we've read that already. These are all weird out of order. So this one, he says, I might regret interacting with you, but what the heck? Brendan is not like them. When asked why he raped Teresa, the one who answered that he wanted to know what felt like sex. That Brendan? Brendan is incapable of hurting a fly. Seriously. Do you really think this kid is going to be able to, for his first sexual experience, rape a woman in front of his uncle? And if that's the case, that you're so set on Brendan there, then why isn't that used in Stephen's case? Why is Stephen's case completely different and there's no rape? And no Brendan? Then he says, you'll go off? What the fuck does that consist of? This Twitter visit has been entertaining. All right, because this first one of his, I've already read. This one says, regarding Bobby's motive, this should be good. Is it your position that porn sites Bobby or some other family member with access visited in the spring of 2006 is the evidence of his motive on 1031? Zellner knows, or all caps should know, that even if relevant, Bobby's motive is on 1031. All right, here he says, to imagine Avery is innocent requires anyone to completely ignore the evidence together with common sense. Why would she or anyone for that matter choose to imagine what cannot possibly be true? She doesn't need to be fed anything, Lisa. Tell you what, if Leah's opinion about receiving constant, all capitals, death threats makes you so irritated, why don't you, all capitals, stop following her? Because I bet she's not following you, and there's a million different exclamation points, like a teen girl. Then he says, dear God, you got me. Sorry, apparently before you were jetsoned from my memory, you had been an idiot before and needed to be blocked. Please take this win and share it with your fangirls, both of them, as you shout, Ma the meatloaf. Here he says, am I allowed to agree? Another response to Madam Zellner's fake bounty offer, and we are surprised why that this becomes newsworthy. Here he says, one opinion is backed by evidence. The other is supported by misrepresenting. That's how he spelled it. And I guess I have to read it how he spelled it because he's way smarter than everybody else. So, he wouldn't have a typo. So he must have meant that word misrepresenting facts to pretend, all capitals, it supports doubt. Best example, Zellner's straw man argument that the state told the jury item FL went through Teresa's skull. That was never, all capitals, our theory, and never, all capitals, said to the jury. Here he says, no, every question, every answer is public, full transparency. Let's see Kathleen Zellner make that promise. I will watch that one. This one says, okay, one at a time, Deborah. Bobby first. By investigated, do you mean from the Division of Criminal Investigation or some other agency? And this is not a trick question, but at the time of this case, let's say between November 5 and November 15th, what would you, all capitals, have done to investigate? Here he says, I'm not tying the searches to anyone. I'm saying that's the point. Whoever performed those searches, that is not, all capitals, evidence of motive. It never would be admitted as such. So I ask even you, what evidence, all capitals, do you fangirls have for Bobby, no S, Bobby apostrophe no S, motive, all capitals, bunch of question marks? I've been told evidence exists. Here he says, the coward comment comes from people who hide behind their keyboards, which is, I'm pretty sure he's typing on a keyboard. He'll probably have to, let me know if that's true or not, because, I'm just not as smart as him. But he continues, you know the type, and throw hurtful accusations at someone who is real. Note, Leah and I are not anonymous, but refuse to let anyone know who they are. The goal of these cowards then is to defame, then hide. Who's defaming you, sweaty sweat sweat? Because even calling you a rapist is not defamation because it is true and has been proven. I'm not hiding. Here I am. I'm not on a keyboard. I'm not even touching a keyboard. He says, my law school professor lied to me. He said, when someone is found guilty, they are convicted. I need to send a sternly worded letter. And then, I'm sorry, this is evidence of what? I'm not being sorry. What this purports to show. That Bobby wasn't there between 3 and 5:30, that Brendan was, that he slept while both Brendan and Steve admit Brendan was at Avery's helping clean the stains in the garage. When were they cleaning the stains in the garage? You mean at the times that Jody is on the phone with Steven? You mean at that time? Or do you mean at the time when Barb is at home doing dishes or cooking dinner? You mean at that time? He says, great question, Sandy. Here's the answer. I did not hold a press conference in Chicago. I know your hero, Steve Drizzen, said that, but by golly, old Steve is again spinning facts. Colleen Henry of Channel 12 asked me before, all capitals, the hearing if I would answer a few cues after the hearing, and I did. Hold the phone there. I was at that hearing. Okay? You can even see me in Making a Murderer Part 2. Now I sound like Carla Chase. You can see me in Making a Murderer Part 2, episode like 9 or whatever, when it's Brendan's hearing in Chicago. You see me standing with Stephen Drizzen. Here's what happened. Their press is all set up downstairs. You know, the hearing was, I don't know what floor it was on, and who cares? That doesn't matter. Press is all set up there for people pertinent to the case to come up there and talk to the press. It's the bank of press all right there. Nobody asked for Kratz to go over there and talk to the bank of press. If this chick wanted to talk to him, he could have done that off to a side like many other people did with other press outlets for one-on-one. So this chick asking him for some, if she can question him, has nothing to do with you now going up to the bank of reporters to talk to like you're holding a press conference and gonna lie some more like you like to do at press conferences. So I was there. I know what happened. So liar, liar. All right, so that's it of my screenshots that I have. There may be things that are still continuing. Let me see. Yeah, okay. That's all of them. Let me look at his Twitter. No. So, okay, I don't see anything else to add to that. Let me go to your comments now, because maybe some of you were on Twitter during all of this and saw other things that I didn't get the screenshots of. Carol Ann says, screenshot everything, people, in case Zellner needs it. Sonia says, the daughter-wife also tweeted that Zellner should go fuck a cactus. They're crazy. They are the Kratzes. Yeah. Steven says, what's the drama with Kratz on Twitter? Carol Ann says, TikTok Manitowoc got under Kratz's skin. Kristen says, it changes every time you change picture. This isn't the first time Leah has tried to deny saying something based on current picture. That's funny. Carol Ann says, are you on crack, Ken? Sonia says, me equals Kratz. San says, Stephen is not going to rape anyone. Stephen has never raped anyone. Rhonda says, hey, Jax, just got here. Thank you for live. Those tweets, right? Sweaty. Carol Ann says, so Bobby's computer searches are irrelevant, but they photograph Steve's Playboy mag collection, right? Who cares? How, so he's got Playboy. It's a big deal. That doesn't mean he's a deviant, but Kratz is. Shall we go back to his text messages with victims that he took advantage of? That's your sexual deviant. Sonia says, yep, a sick guilter he is. Rhonda said, planted and planted. Duh. Kristen says, whitey tighties are in a bunch. Jolene says, Mr. Kratz. Mr. Kratz, LOL. Stephanie says, yes. Valerie says, I hope this stays up so I can watch it, please. This will stay up. They almost always stay up unless they have to come down for some other reason. Gwen says, I think Sweaty is falling apart at the seams. Think he needs to keep quiet, but just can't help himself. He's going to cause a domino effect, and law enforcement aren't going to be very happy with him opening his big mouth. What a tosser. Is it this? When you do tosser, what a tosser? That would you... Sonia says, Sweaty Sweat Sweat is the best name ever. For those that are new, Sweaty Sweat Sweat comes from when I attended one of Brendan's hearings in Chicago. We're waiting in line to get into the courtroom. Seats are first come, first serve. Kratz was a couple people, like 4 or 5 people in front of me in line with his daughter, sister, child, bride. They weren't married at that time, though. And when I do these things, when I go to court hearings and stuff, I bring a notebook and I take notes, and then I write an article afterwards of what happened at the hearing. And so I wrote an article about my experience there, and I talked about how Kratz was like really sweaty, and I laughed at how funny it is since he's so obsessed with sweat. When you see him in Stephen's trial, how many times does he say sweat? The sweat. It's almost like he gets off on the word. And so I had commented on just how sweaty he was. And I had also taken a picture of him and posted it. And child, daughter, bride read my article and got all upset about it, and so started tweeting about it. First of all, saying things that like I broke the law that you're not allowed to take pictures. Well, I was in the hallway and you can take pictures. You can't take pictures in the courtroom, which I didn't. So sorry, miss, she knows the law. And then she made some excuse for him being sweaty, saying he's got like a medical condition and how dare he. So since they were so bothered by me saying he was sweat, I started that he was sweaty, I started referring to him as sweaty, sweat, and it bothers them. So I can be as childish and petty as the next person. So I've had people in the past tell me I shouldn't do that because I lose credibility by using a nickname, that I should just use his name. But I can be nasty too, and he deserves the nastiness. Carol Ann says he needs to step away from whatever he is on. It is very entertaining, though. Keep digging away, Kratz. You're just giving KZ ammo, LOL. And then Carol Ann says, past performance predicts future behavior, KK. Rhonda says, wow, that sweaty pig is really falling apart. He's a ticking time bomb. Lynn says he's fallen off the wagon. He's on his pills again. Kristen says, as shown in the clip of convicting a murderer, it wouldn't take much to break Kratz. I'd love to see him in the box. Can somebody post that again in Gossip, the link to that clip? Because that was entertaining. And I can't even remember all that Kratz screwed up on. Just what, all the hilarious parts of it. So I'd love to revisit that. Carol Ann says, I hope he likes orange. Yeah. Sonia, orange is the new Kratz. Chris says he was so unprofessional in that tweetathon. He can't handle the pressure of legit questions. As an ex-attorney, you would think he could restrain from name calling. Yeah, you would think. Kitty says he's only doing this to stir drama for his re-release of his book. He hasn't posted in weeks, months on Twitter. And that's something else I did, is when he was trying to sell his book, and he was going to go on a book tour, he scheduled a stop here in my neck of the woods. And that awful judge chick, what is her name? Why can't I remember her name? She's on Fox News. I can't remember her name, but one of you will. Was going on the book tour with him. So I organized a protest that we were going to be out front. And then Drizzen asked if I would go in, because I had gone to Drizzen's events, I'd gone to Strang and Buting's events, and take my notes and write an article. And so he said, are you going to go in? And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not giving Kratz my money. I'm not going in for that. And he said he would like me to go in, and as he said, do what I do, meaning write the article on the Kratz event. So I then, and bought a ticket. Tickets had been on sale for like 2 days at that point or something. And I was able to get front row middle. So I was going to be front and center right in front of Kratz. So that also tells you, since I was able to get such awesome seats, that nobody bought any of those tickets. And so eventually the event was canceled and I got my money back. So his little book tour did not happen here in the Chicago area. Jody says, exactly, LOL, and exactly, all capitals, just as Kratz would write. Amanda says, what's happening? Just joined. Hi, all from Glasgow, Scotland. Hopefully you're now caught up. Chris said, at the end, he responded to TikTok Manitowoc to read his new chapters. It's all a motive to increase interest in his mind. And what I will tell all of you, I understand the interest to want to read it. Do not give that fat fuck any of your money. Let one person buy it, and then we'll get it posted. And y'all could see it and not give him any freaking money. Do not give him any money. Ignore him. Ignore the troll. Don't feed the troll. Sonia says, Kratz is answering tweets, but not really. Oh, saying what's going on. Christina says, once a piece of shit, always a piece of shit. Shelly says, what's going on? Which I hope that's answered. Rhonda says, Mom the Meatloaf. Laugh my ass off. He's quoting Will Ferrell's character from Wedding Crashers. The guy who lives with his mom and crashes funerals. My God, he's really slipped out of gear. Joshua says, how come Steven Sweat wasn't found all over his trailer? Good one. Yeah. Josh says, what do you think of the new FOIA footage? What FOIA footage are you referring to, Josh? Because I may not even know. Rhonda says, Ken cracks. Kat says, is there anything he does not get off on? Ugh, I really don't want to think about what that creeper gets off on. So gross. Rhonda says, dang you, all capitals. Child, daughter, bride. I laughed and said, yeah, I can't take credit for that. I've seen so many people say that stuff. Bryce says, I like the name Sweaty Sweat for him. Hi, Alexia. Heather says, what did I miss? Just reading Kratz's tweets. Deanna says, Janine Pirro or something like that. Yeah, that's it. Janine Pirro. Judge Janine Pirro. Yeah. Yeah. So she was going to be touring with him. And there's somebody else, Janine Perro. Thank you, everybody. Joshua says, I will read it, but he won't be getting my money. Yeah, you know, anything of importance will get leaked. So we'll get it posted. If you find it somewhere, get it posted in gossip. You know, so don't give him any money. Kat says, I want to read the book, but I won't give that fat fuck any of my hard-earned dollars for that. I will check it out from my library. Excellent. If they'll even carry it. It's because nobody cares about a stupid book. Hey, Tammy. Joshua says, on Reddit, posted a few days ago, there's 4 videos of law enforcement going back to his trailer, garage, and a Dassey's home, etc. Actually, one of the moderators just sent to all of us moderators last night a video of going into Steven's trailer. And I started to watch it at like 4 a.m. my time. I think I fell asleep during it too, because it's like I'm an old lady and I get up a million times a night and can't, you know, so I'm up at weird times. And one of our moderators lives in Australia, so, you know, she's up at different times than me, obviously, because day-night reversal. So I had only seen that one. I didn't see all of them. So yeah, that's